Welcome back to the shop. Today, I wanted to talk about why I think that every man needs a shop, why it is truly important. A shop brings something to a man that is, it's something he can't get anywhere else. And when I talk about a shop, I don't necessarily mean a place that you work on something or like some people, and I'm sure like mechanics and stuff that work in mechanic shops, or even like in the past, I've worked in some fab shops and stuff. They may be thinking back to that, but what I'm referring to is your own space. You might would call this a man cave. You might would call this a shop. You might would call it a shed. I've heard some people in Europe and other places like that. I've heard them call it a shed. Um, Wherever you're at, let me know what you call it. But what I mean is a place for a man to retreat away from the family, away from the world, and have a place to actually go and do what he wants to do, but do it in a way that he can actually do it for himself. And now let's talk for a second about man cave and um, shops. I don't, as much as I think a man cave is awesome, I think that it is better for most men if they have an actual place that they can build or fix. I really think that all men are either builders or fixers at heart of some kind. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're hands on, so that may not be your thing. But I do think that whether it's a man cave or a shop, I think that is kind of a pretty important thing. I really believe that for myself, being able to get out and so I'll give you a little story. For years, I was not able to build or fix anything inside of a shop at all. I would travel the roads and I was welding and things like that. And I hated mechanic work. But I would have to, in fact, I actually decided to get into welding specifically so that I wouldn't have to be a mechanic like a lot of my other brothers seem to be heading towards. And it was kind of funny because I started my own business, and I've told this story before, but I started my own business. And as a result, I was so poor in that business. I was debt free, but I was poor. And I had to work on all my own machines and work on all my own trucks and everything else. And so I inevitably had no choice but to be kind of a mechanic. And I mean, I was rebuilding stuff, literally rebuilding stuff on the side of the road. I actually remember rebuilding an entire engine on my welding machine, tearing it down and rebuilding it. And it was kind of a crazy experience now that I look back and think about it, but it just seemed like normal to me at that point. And so when I can do that now, like when I was doing it then, it was so stressful. It was so overwhelming. I couldn't enjoy it. But when I build something now, when I tear down an engine or I fix something on a tractor or something, if a tractor breaks down here on the farm or something, and I have to work on it, it is somewhat stressful if it's right in the middle of a time that I need it. Okay. But being able to take it in during the rain, take it in out of the weather, take it into a comfortable, enjoyable environment, bring it somewhere that I enjoy, that I like. But not only that, somewhere that I have set up myself. I see a lot of times you'll have a messy shop. Like my mom would always tell my dad, come into his shop and be like, why won't you let me clean this place up? Let me clean it up. And it's like, he liked it the way it was. Now, I do think that men should try to have their shops clean and organized. But here's the problem. If you, as a woman or another man, go in and organize a man's shop, it will never be his. And that's why when a man opens the refrigerator and tries to find a ketchup, he can't find it. If a man puts it there, he will remember where it's at. So take the time and organize your own shop, and you'll be so much happier that way. But if somebody else organizes it for you, it's not going to stay that way. You're not going to remember where it went. You're not going to remember where it goes, and it's just not going to be the same. But there's something about everything having a place, knowing where it goes, and actually being able to put it together and work in an environment that you enjoy being in. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of why I think every man should have a shop. But there's several really good reasons, I think. The speed at which I can come in here and put something together now compared to how long it used to take me. Stuff scattered on the ground, even when I did have the other shop across the road. Like I've got pictures of me, everything would be working on the ground. And I still do sometimes, but it's like you would have everything all laid out, and or you'd be out on the ground and you're building and working out on the ground, and it was just, it's so unpleasant and so inefficient that you almost would be better off buying it. But once you can get it into an efficient place and you can actually work fast and enjoyable, it's actually well worth building things. A lot of people don't build stuff themselves because it takes them so long that it just doesn't make any sense. But having a place where you actually can build it and work on it yourself, then it actually does make sense. And it's the same thing with mechanic work. I can come in here, I know right where everything is. Everything is very, very fast. I build tools, I make everything modular. I have everything on wheels and easy to move around. And I'm working on that, getting better and better. But that's the plan, and I can just get it right where I need it and get everything worked on and moved around just exactly right. And it's not 100% better. It's 1,000% better, and I do not think I'm exaggerating. I remember laying like tools scattered all over the ground. You might leave some tools laying in the sand. You don't even know they're there, and you have to pick them all up or they're going to get rained on. I can't stand seeing tools getting rained on, and it's just one thing after the other. But the ability to come in and have your own workspace, have this space that is your space, and you get to do with it whatever you want. That is, it is so amazing. I can't even really describe how wonderful it is, how fast it is. And I feel truly blessed that I've been able to have that, and the Lord has blessed me in that. But I really think if you're a wife listening to this, then you should understand and strive to give him a place for that. Another reason for having a shop is it gets you out of the elements. Okay. I've got a pad here, so that gets me off of the ground, off of a possibly a wet ground or a nasty ground. Even if you're working in the summertime, you still have a humid ground. So trying to get up early and get out working, you'll have dew all over everything. You have to wait for the dew to dry off. And then the day goes on and it gets hot and it's nasty, and you're just miserable all day. You have a place that's cool. It gets you out of the sun, especially if you have a tall shop. I really advocate having a tall shop if you can afford it, because it gets the heat higher up off of you, and you're not necessarily having to pay for insulation. And then if you ever do pay for insulation for that shop, then it's that much better. Not to mention all of the room that you have. If you want to bring stuff in, you can build a loft over you like I did here. All of those things gets that heat off of you. Like when I get in here in this little area, I've got two layers between me and the sun. So even if it's hot outside, this is the north side. This is not bad at all. And kind of the way I laid it out. So it gets me out of the rain. It gets me out of the sun. It gets me out of any kind of cold elements or anything like that. We don't battle cold as bad as some people do, but in the wintertime, it's raining quite a bit. And I remember before I had a shop, man, if it rained, you were just depressed as a man, because it's like you had stuff to do and you couldn't do it. I mean, you literally could not do it. And so just the ability to, it gives you so much more time. If you have to stay up late, you have lighting, you have lights, and you can get around and you can actually get that job done. There are days, and only, not everyone will understand this, but some of you men out there will understand this. There are days where you are better to stay up until 2 o'clock and get the job done than you are to go to bed, lay in bed tossing and turning until 1 o'clock, get miserable sleep, and then not even be very productive the next day. That's not always the case. Many times it's better to stick to a routine, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's better. And if you have that daylight, you don't have that stress of of the sun going down and you're running out of time. Sometimes that's what a man really needs, is just to be able to get in out of the elements. Sometimes it just helps to you have more energy. You come in your wife, you're not completely slap out from the heat. You can turn a fan on, you can roll your stuff around easy. I took for granted for how hard things were. Like I didn't think about the fact that, you would grab something and physically move it this way or something like that and move it around. Fairly heavy objects. They weren't terribly heavy, but after all day, they get heavier and heavier. Now I realize, now that I have this shop, I realize just how easy it is to just grab something and move it, just like that, and you've got whatever you need at your fingertips, just so low effort and so fast that it increases your productivity, but it also it decreases the stress that even a bad, stressful job would have on your mind. Now, we've talked about kind of a retreat aspect, but something that's kind of similar but not quite is the aspect of therapy. A lot of people talk about men going to a therapist and things like that. And to some degree, and I'm not discounting therapy, therapy is good for men in certain cases, but in a lot of cases, therapy doesn't seem to do a man as good as often as it does a woman. I'm not discounting it. You should go if you need it. So do not mishear me on that. But there is something therapeutic about just being able to come out and do something at your own pace and do something that you're inspired to do, whatever that is. In this shop, my goal is to be able to build to do leather work, because I used to have a leather working shop. I actually used to do it kind of as a halfway as a living. I want to be able to do welding work because that's my profession. And I just feel like I want to be able to do a lot of that here. I still really enjoy that. I want to be able to do woodwork. My wife, now that I have the sawmill, I have all that lumber, and my wife really enjoys uh, woodwork, just something that she enjoys. And I want to be able to do that in this shop. I also kind of want to get into some finer carpentry and stretch the boundaries there. I want to be able to do mechanic work. Like I said, I started out hating mechanic work, and now I'm learning to enjoy it because I can do it kind of my own way. But also, there's quite a few jobs that now that I'm faster, now that I'm getting literally faster because of my shop and because of the tools, it actually still saves me money to work on tractors and things like that myself. Even as our income goes up, I'm still finding there are certain things, not all things, some things it definitely makes sense to take in, but there are some things that still make sense for me to work on right here in the shop. And and I want to be able to do little finer things, little things that I might, just like little hobbies here and there that I might want to pick up. I want this container over here on the north side. I want to be able to enclose it to where and insulate it to where I can have some heat and keep it cool. And that's probably where I'll do my leather work and things like that. So essentially, I want to be able to do just about anything that I can think of that I want to do. And I would love to hear in the comments, y'all drop it down there. What are the things, if you had your dream shop, what are the things that you would be able to do in your dream shop? Maybe it's one thing, maybe it's a lot of things. There is no wrong answer. And maybe it's just a man cave, a place you can sit back, smoke some cigars, maybe drink some fine whiskey, something, whatever that is. There is no wrong answer. I would love to hear that. So it's a place, there really is a place of therapy that actually comes with that, especially if you can get some other men to come over with you, hang out in your environment. And sometimes there's something about men coming over and hanging out in your environment and enjoying that around you, whether even if it's smoking a cigar or if it's just working together and rebuilding a dirt bike or rebuilding a four wheeler or whatever it might be, it sometimes that's what a man needs, and sometimes he needs to be alone and actually get away. And I kind of touched on the fact that it makes your work more enjoyable and makes you feel better. But on the same token, it also makes you literally faster. So, like I said a little bit earlier, now I'm doing mechanic work. I literally thought I would get to the point that as my income got higher, that I would just get to the point it wouldn't make sense for me to fix stuff. But there's two things that's happened. Number one, there's some things I actually get so much pleasure out of fixing and so much therapy to some degree. It almost makes more sense for me to just go ahead and do it myself because of that therapeutic effect. And if you're not getting that, then this might not count for you. But if you can get to a point where you're actually getting that therapy and that pleasure that's coming from that, then it might still be worth it, even if it would make more sense to take it to a mechanic or whatever it is we're talking about, whether you're building something or working on something. But the part I was not expecting was to literally get significantly faster. My tools have gotten better. I've gotten better tools that I've built and that I have actually bought. But B, just simply the things like the casters, the things like the nice pad that's easy to roll things around. The part about having things spread out the way I want them. I don't know if you can see them right here, but just having them spread out, easy to get to, everything's laid in an exact spot, and the fact that I know right where it is. My mechanic set used to be in the back of my welding truck, and I kind of knew where it was, but I kind of didn't. So not only was it not great working on it, but it was also the the amount of time it took finding each tool, go moving around. So my efficiency, my speed at which I can get it done, multiplied by the good attitude and the good mood that I'm getting while doing it, has just it's blown me away at how much uh, the fact that I'm still able to justify doing these kinds of things. So ultimately, it doesn't matter how you have to justify having a shop. My dad told me something years ago. He said, "Son, if you find a tool and you can afford that tool and that tool makes you happy, you do not have to justify buying that tool." And this came from a man that was very poor and raised 10 boys on his salary. My mom couldn't work, and she didn't work, is what I mean to say. And so she didn't work, so there was no income coming from her. Single income by himself. The most money he ever made was $26,000 while taking care of us. And he took care of 10 boys on that. Now you do the math on how much there was for each one of us. A normal salary was with between 18 and 19 thousand a year. That's not a lot of money for 10 boys. Even even though it was a little bit of time ago and we aren't talking about inflation, the point is that he, on that salary, that was still his opinion, is if you can afford it and it makes you happy and you like the tool, then to go buy it. And I have found that to be very true because of what you can get out of that. The therapy side of it. There's a lot of people that, and I like guns. I'm not against guns, but there are a lot of people that are big collectors, and they all they do is collect. And there's nothing against that if you have the money. And they'll have huge amounts of it, and they don't use it. I have always been more of a kind of person that I get a lot more joy and happiness out of spending my money on things that I do actually use. And so that's been kind of my rule, is when I'm going to spend money, I can spend money on it. I can enjoy it if I can afford it. Whether it's a gun, whether it's a tool, no matter what it is. But it's something that I'm going to use. And if I'm going to use it, I've got to be able to find it. I've got to know where it is, and it's got to be at an arm's reach. And I've got to be able to get to it in my environment and make it work. There's a lot of reasons to have a shop. There's probably a lot more reasons than I've listed, and I would love to hear in the comment section why you think that every man needs his own space of some kind. Guys, drop it in the comments. Whatever you do, whether you have a shop, whether you have a shed, whether you have just a place that you can work on something or get away, whatever you do, just go build you something that's yours. Build you something that you enjoy, that puts you in that space, that every time you walk into it, you have peace. As soon as you walk into it, it's not full of clutter. It's not full of a bunch of unfinished stuff. I've made that mistake many times. I've still got some of those mistakes I'm working out. But when you walk into a place that's finished, that you did, that you worked on, and you made what you said you were going to do happen, those kinds of things encourage you. Those kinds of things lifts your mood and they inspire you to do more. Not every day is a good day, but you can make every day a better day. Like and subscribe.